All right, welcome everybody to the second course of the full-time GoDev program in the concurrency chapter. And in the previous chapter, we basically, in the previous course lesson, by the way, we covered the basics a little bit of Go routines and channels. And of course, it's so much to cover that I need to split these things up, right? So basically what we're going to do is we are going to see how we can how we can write to channels and how we can range over them and all that stuff, right? That's some common practices, right? So basically, let me delete this whole shebang here, and I'm going to do this on the fly, so I have no clue actually what we're going to do. So basically, let's say we are going to make something like a channel, right? We're going to call this result channel. Why not? Because most of the time they're going to be results, right? So we're going to say the results. Actually, to be honest, let's make a message channel. We're going to make a message channel where we can basically put messages in, and then other people, other pieces in our software can read from that message channel. They can read these messages and process them, for example, right? So we are going to make a channel, right? We already know how to make channels of strings, right? That's what we're going to do. And in this case, what we're going to say, we're going to buffer this channel. So now you could say, what could be a good buffer length of your channel? Well, that's something that's not that really easy, right? You could basically with a wet finger and pick something large or something, but you need to understand that each time you basically put some buffer in, it's actually going to allocate memory, right? Space enough for your strings. So you need to understand that you have that what I told you in the beginning, right? This is something I'm going to repeat over and over, that a channel is always blocking when it's full. So if you produce, right? If you write faster to your channel, that it can produce, that it can consume, that it can read, right? You can write to a channel and read from a channel. If you write faster to your channel than you read from it, at a certain point of time, it's going to be full. And what happens? It's going to block. And that basically means that your program will not run as efficient anymore because you have a faster writer, a faster producer than you have a consumer. It's a very important aspect. And for the people that don't know, I also made a framework Hollywood, which is an actor model, but that's something completely different. And there we don't use channels because there's always a case that if you have something like a queue, that your producer is slower than your consumer, faster than your consumer, right? And then your channel is going to block and your program is going to halt. Your program is going to block. Your program is going to wait until there is more room. So what is a good value? Well, that depends, right? That depends. It depends from use case to use case. If there is a big chance that your consumer is slower than your producer, you should bump up the channel, right? But if you are pretty sure that producing and consuming are happening almost at the same time, you can actually pick a number. For example, you could do 128 or something, right? And also a tip I'm going to give you as programmers, right? Because this is a course, full-time GoDev course, but I'm also going to give you some general tips that actually work in programming in general. And that is, if you want to specify lengths or something, if you want to make stuff, always use these numbers of the power of 2 almost. For example, 128 or maybe 512 or 1024, and you have, for example, 248, right? These values, these are values that computers really can understand very well, if you know what I mean. And I'm always using these numbers, and it's always a good practice. For example, 8 or 16 and all that stuff. And in our case, we're going to say 128, right? So what we could do here is we can actually write messages to this message channel. So we're going to say, for example, what the hell is going on here? We're going to say message 1. Actually, to be honest, let's say A. Let's make it a capital letter, right? A. And then we're going to say B. And then we're going to say C, for example, right? C. So we basically are writing 3 messages to our message channel, right? So how can we actually receive these messages? Well, you have a concept. You have the concept. For example, you can read one, right? We already know how we can read one. We could say that the result, or basically the message, right? The message is going to be, and we're going to read like this from our message channel, right? And then we could say here, fmt print ln, the message, the MSG is this MSG, and then if we run this, then we're going to say that the message is A. But how can we get message B? Well, then we need to do it the same again, right? Then we're going to copy this thing, boom. And we're going to print this again, and then we're going to run it again, boom, and the message is B. So you see what's happening. Each time we're going to read from a channel, it's going to get the next piece on the chopping block, right? Because we already, here we read A, and the next we're going to read is B, and the next we're going to read is C, right? But this is weird, right? This is a weird concept. Maybe it could be that your program could use something like that, but I highly doubt it. So how can we do this more efficient? There is a concept of ranging over channels, right? So how do we range over channels? That's very simple. We could do for, and then we're going to say for message in range message channel, and then we can actually say fmt println the message, right? So what this is going to do, but this is going to, you will see. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let it run. Boom. So you can see what's happening, right? We are reading these messages, right? Let me make it a little bit more clear. The message. Let's clear the screen and let's run it again. What's going on here? Boom, right? So the message is A, the message is B, and the message is C. But then we get fatal error. All Go routines are asleep once again. And I explicitly let this happen. So you know, because you are going to encounter this. I encountered this when I started many times for years, right? And I'm going to teach you why that is. So you don't need to hassle. So what's going to happen is that basically, we are writing 3 messages to our channel. And we are going to range over this message channel. But basically means that we are going to, there is nothing else. There is no logic that tells us that we need to break or stop, or this is going to keep ranging over these messages. How the hell? This is basically our consumer, right? This is our, this piece of code. And for the guys that, for the people that for the guys and girls that are worrying, I don't think I'm gonna make this source code of these small examples public, because it's already deleted. But for the projects we are actually gonna build, like the JSON APIs and microservice and all stuff, the blockchain, that is going to be on GitHub, right? And if you don't have access yet, to the Fulltime GoDev private organization on GitHub, send me a mail. Go to my Discord, contact me, and I will add you. Contact me with your GitHub username, and I will add you so you have access to all that code. And of course, for the people that have purchased Fulltime GoDev, you guys, because otherwise you won't watch this video, you also have one time slot to talk with me, right? Maybe I can help you with whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? It legit doesn't really matter. You can talk to me, you can ask questions, maybe we just hang out or something, I have no clue. It depends on you, right? You have a right at one time slot. What's the time slot going to be? I don't know. It's going to be enough to cover all your hassles, right? Tips, tricks, resume interviews, resume interview preparations, whatever you want to call it. It's going to happen. So this piece of code is our consumer. For example, right? So what's going to happen is we're going to write these 3 messages, and our consumer is going to range over these message channel, and it's going to print out the messages. How the hell is our consumer going to know that we are stopped producing messages? How? It isn't, right? It's just, it's ranging over these messages. Maybe there will be messages coming more and more, but there isn't, right? And Golang, the compiler of Golang, is very smart, and it knows that you are writing 3 times, but you keep reading, and there is no other code that keeps writing or do something else. So it's going to tell you from, hey, James, hey, Alice, yo, Bob, all go routines are asleep, your program cannot continue. It's locked, right? How can we fix that? Well, what we need to do basically is that if we are not going to use a channel anymore, right? Because in this case, we're going to write 3 messages and then we are basically done, right? So what we could do to clean things up, to make things nice and free, we are going to close the channel, right? And how do we close a channel? That's very simple. We're going to say close, and then we're going to say close the message channel here, right? And what's going to happen is it's basically going to close a channel. It's going to notify everybody, yo, the message channel we just created is closed. The cookie box is sealed. Nobody can take a cookie out of, and nobody can put a cookie in of something. And what this is going to do basically is, you see, I'm going to print here, println, done, reading all the messages from the channel. Right? So let's run this, boom. So you can see, we basically wrote 3 messages, we read all the messages, and then we are done reading all the messages from the channel. If we do not close this, then what's going to happen is, it's so annoying here, I'm not going to lie. Boom. If you do not do this, we're going to read these messages, but then Golang is going to say, yo, hey, we are blocked. We are waiting forever. Just like you on your Tinder date. It's a joke. So basically, it's a joke. It's not a joke anymore. I made it too much. But hey, I'm still going to do it because maybe you didn't watch that specific YouTube video where I made it. So we need to close that. What's going on here? Yes, fine. All right. Expect a statement from. What's going on here? My Vim is basically barking like insane. You see? On the fly. All right. So let's make this closey and then run this once again here to make sure we are good. Yes. All right. So this is working pretty fine. So there are other things we can do with this is instead of ranging over this channel, we can do something completely different, right? We could say, for example, a for loop. We're going to make a for loop, right? A never-ending for loop. It's going to keep foring forever, right? It's like a while, actually. And I don't know whether you have while, JavaScript, Python. I'm not quite sure. It's like a while, right? For. You could say for true. But in this case, for will always be true, right? So we're going to range... we're going to do a for loop. And then we're going to basically say that the message we have is going to be... the message... we're going to read from this message channel. And then we're going to copy this println statement we have here. Basically, we're going to save that. And let's do not close this channel. And in this case, we're not going to have a deadlock because it's a for loop, I think. We will see what's going on. I'm not quite sure. Oh, we still have it, right? It's no problem. So it's the same principle, right? So we are reading these messages. What's going on here? My mouse is borked for no reason at all, guys. What's all these technical issues right now? Yes, it's working. Look at this, guys. Live on video. Technical problems. So we are basically for looping. We are reading this from the channel and then we are printing it out, which is the same code as this for loop here, right? The thing is, of course, that if we close this channel now, right? If we close this channel in a for loop and we use a for loop, then you see what's going to happen? It's basically going to read nothing. You see, this is bad. What's happening? It's very bad. And why is that? That's because we closed the channel, and this basically will always return nothing because the channel is closed. Is there a way we can actually? Is there a way we can know? Because in this case, in this range, it automatically handles that for us, right? It automatically handles that if the channel is closed, the for loop, the for range over the message channel will basically just break, right? And complete, right? But if we use a for loop here, we don't. You see, it keeps for looping with junk. right? But there is good news, because there is a way to basically get notified if the channel is closed. And we can do that by saying MSG, and I think this is going to be okay. It's a Boolean. I think closed maybe. Not quite sure. If it's a true or false, we will see. And so that's what you could do. You could say MSG closed, and then you could say like if closed. So it could be that we need to do it the other way around. Not quite sure. If this is closed, we're going to break the for loop, right? We're going to break the for loop. I'm not quite sure. It could be that I need to reverse this, by the way. I think it's going to be okay like that. And we're going to say okay. So if not okay, we're going to break. Otherwise, we're going to print out a message. I think that should work. Not quite sure. Yeah, you see, this is working pretty fine. And now we have the same mechanics, the same result as we have as we had with our range over a channel syntax, right? But you could see this is basically a little bit more verbose to do than just ranging over this channel, right? It's look at this, it's much cleaner, right? It's one line, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5 lines, right? But I just wanted to show you that we can do it if we really want, right? There is also a concept of for select, and that's something we are going to cover in the next lesson, because we're going to use a very common pattern that I'm using. It's actually a real world scenario case scenario that I'm using all the time. It's a pattern I'm using all the time when I'm making service and all that stuff and communicating with channels. And that's what I'm going to show you because there is a little bit more advanced stuff going on there. So yeah, so this is basically how we can write values into channels, how we can range over these channels, how we can close a channel and all that stuff. And we also covered some bad stuff that could happen if we don't close it and all that stuff. Right? Cool. I'll see you in the next lesson.